The ring lights were already set up when I walked through the front door. That should have been my first warning. 3 professional-grade LED panels bathed our living room in that harsh, artificial glow that screams content creation. My wife Chloe sat perched on our cream-colored sectional, flanked by her 2 closest allies, Tessa, her ride-or-die best friend since law school, and Anna, the perpetually filming TikTok addict who documented every breath she took. "Oh, perfect! You're home!" Chloe's voice carried that particular pitch that meant trouble, the same tone she used when explaining to clients why their cases were taking longer than expected, or when she was about to suggest we spend our vacation fund on another investment piece for her wardrobe. I set down my laptop bag and loosened my tie, taking in the scene. After 15 years in crisis PR, you develop an eye for staged drama. The lighting was too perfect, the positioning too deliberate. Chloe had changed from her usual post-work yoga pants into a flowing white dress that photographed well. Her makeup was camera-ready, not just got home from the office ready. "What's all this?" I asked, though my gut already knew. In my line of work, I'd seen enough manufactured moments to recognize the setup. The question was whether I was about to be the willing participant or the unwitting victim. "Sit down, Ethan." She patted the cushion beside her, but not too close. Camera angles matter. "We need to talk." Anna held up her phone, already recording. Tessa had hers positioned at a different angle. Multi-camera shoot, professional-level narcissistic supply gathering. I remained standing, crossing my arms. "On our anniversary, with an audience." "That's actually perfect timing," Chloe said, her smile widening. The kind of smile that never reached her eyes, the one she used in court when she was about to destroy someone's credibility. "Because I have something to tell you." The phones kept rolling. I could see the red recording dots, like tiny eyes watching, waiting for my reaction. This was the moment she wanted to capture. My shock, my pain, my humiliation. "Ethan," she continued, her voice taking on that practiced cadence she used for depositions, "I want a divorce." Silence stretched between us. Anna shifted slightly, making sure she got my face in frame. Tessa bit her lip, barely containing her excitement. They were all waiting for me to crumble, to beg, to make a scene that would generate views and comments and shares. Instead, I laughed. Not a bitter laugh or a broken one, a genuine chuckle of recognition. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't looking at my wife of 8 years. I was looking at a content creator who had cast me as the straight man in my own marriage. "Interesting prank," I said, my voice calm and measured. The same tone I used when delivering bad news to clients who thought they could spin their way out of scandals. "When were you going to mention the other joke? The one where you've been seeing Emily's husband?" The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Chloe's camera-ready smile flickered like a bulb about to burn out. Tessa's mouth fell open. Anna's phone wavered in her suddenly unsteady grip. "What?" Chloe's voice cracked on the single syllable. "Craig Dunham," I continued, settling into the armchair across from them. Might as well get comfortable for the show. "Emily's husband runs that influencer agency downtown, the one built on family values branding. You've been meeting him at his office complex for the past 3 months. 17 late-night visits, to be precise." I pulled out my own phone, opening the app I'd been using to track our shared car. Parking logs are fascinating things, aren't they? Especially when your husband used to analyze traffic patterns for a living before he got into crisis management. Chloe's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine. Shock, fear, anger, calculation. I could almost see her lawyer brain spinning, looking for angles, for ways to flip the script. "You're being paranoid," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "This is our anniversary, Ethan. I was just what? Creating content?" I gestured at the ring lights, the phones, the carefully staged scene. "Let me guess. The plan was to film my devastated reaction, then reveal it was all a prank. Get your followers invested in the drama, Maybe build up to a fake reconciliation video? Great engagement strategy? Anna was still recording, though her hands shook slightly. This wasn't going according to script. Except, I continued, you weren't planning to fake the reconciliation part, were you? Craig promised to leave Emily after you softened me up with this little performance. Make me think I was getting you back when really, you were already gone. Tessa found her voice first. Chloe, what is he talking about? But Chloe was staring at me with a mixture of fear and fury that I'd never seen before. The mask was slipping, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. How long have you known? She whispered. About the affair? 3 weeks. I leaned back in the chair, completely relaxed now. About tonight's little show? I figured it out when I saw the ring lights. 3 weeks? Her voice pitched higher. And you didn't say anything? Oh, I said plenty, just not to you. That's when I saw real panic flash across her face. Because Chloe was smart enough to realize that if I'd known for 3 weeks and stayed quiet, I hadn't been sitting idle. See, the thing about crisis management, I explained, is that you learn to think 3 moves ahead. You also learn that the best way to handle a scandal isn't to hide it. It's to control how it comes out. I stood up, straightening my tie. Thanks for filming this, by the way. Really saves me the trouble of explaining to people why our marriage ended. Anna's phone was still recording. Tessa looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch cushions, and Chloe sat frozen, finally understanding that she wasn't the director of this scene anymore. You wanted drama, Chloe, I said, heading toward the stairs. Let's see if you like it when you're not the star. I paused at the bottom step, looking back at the 3 women bathed in artificial light. Oh, and you might want to check your social media. I think you're about to trend. The rusty anchor hadn't changed much in the 15 years since I'd started coming here. Same sticky floors, same neon beer signs casting colored shadows across scarred wooden tables, same smell of fried food and poor decisions. It was the kind of place where a man could drink in peace without worrying about ring lights or performance anxiety. Emily Dunham was already there when I arrived, nursing a whiskey neat at a corner booth. She looked up as I approached, and I saw my own exhaustion reflected in her eyes. We were both casualties of the same war, veterans of a battle we hadn't known we were fighting. How did it go? She asked as I slid into the opposite seat. Better than expected. She filmed the whole thing. I signaled the bartender for the same as Emily. Your husband's about to have a very bad day. Emily's laugh was sharp as broken glass. Good. He deserves it. We'd met 3 weeks ago, purely by accident. I'd been following Chloe's car to Craig's office building, trying to confirm what I already suspected, when I'd spotted Emily doing the same thing from the parking garage across the street. 2 spouses, both armed with suspicion and telephoto lenses, watching our partners betray us in real time. The conversation that followed had been surreal, like finding out your house had been burglarized only to discover your neighbor had been robbed by the same thieves. We'd compared notes, shared evidence, and realized we were dealing with 2 people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. They weren't wrong, exactly. Craig had built his influencer agency on family values content. Clean-cut couples promoting everything from meal kits to vacation destinations, all selling the dream of perfect marriages and happy homes. He was the face of the company, the devoted husband and father who preached about commitment and traditional values. Chloe was equally image-obsessed, though her platform was smaller. A junior partner at a prestigious law firm, she curated an Instagram presence that screamed success and sophistication. Designer outfits, expensive dinners, carefully staged shots of our perfect home life. I still can't believe they thought they could keep this quiet, Emily said, taking another sip of whiskey. In this town, with their profiles? She had a point. Our suburb wasn't exactly a metropolis. Everyone knew everyone, especially in the professional circles where Craig and Chloe operated. The country club, the charity galas, the networking events. It was a small pond, and they were both big fish. Narcissists always think they're smarter than everyone else, I replied. It's their fatal flaw. Emily studied me over her glass. You're taking this awfully well for someone whose wife just asked for a divorce on camera. Are you taking it well? No, she admitted. I'm furious. I want to burn down everything Craig's built and salt the earth where it stood. Good. Anger's useful. Keeps you focused. The bartender brought my whiskey and I took a grateful sip. The alcohol burned, but it was honest pain, not like the performance I'd just endured. So what's the plan? Emily asked. You said you had something in mind. I pulled out my phone, opening the folder I'd been building for 3 weeks. Screenshots, photos, documents, everything needed to tell the story of Craig and Chloe's affair in excruciating detail. Craig's biggest client is Family First Foods, I said, showing Emily the contract I'd photographed from Chloe's home office. She'd been careless with her paperwork, leaving Craig's business documents mixed in with her legal files. They're paying his agency $2 million a year to promote their organic family meal brand. Let me guess, Emily said, her smile turning predatory. They wouldn't be happy to learn their family values spokesman has been cheating on his wife. With a married woman, no less. Someone who's been helping him strategize ways to hide assets from you in the divorce. Emily's eyes widened. She's been what? Your husband's been planning this for months. Chloe's been giving him legal advice on how to minimize what you'd get in the settlement. Moving money around, setting up shell companies, the works. I showed her more screenshots, text messages between Craig and Chloe discussing Emily's spending habits, her lack of income, ways to paint her as a gold digger who didn't deserve half of what Craig had built. That bastard, Emily whispered. I supported him for 5 years while he got the agency off the ground. I gave up my career, moved away from my family, played the perfect wife for his clients. I know. Chloe documented all of it. She thought she was being clever, keeping records to protect Craig. Really, she was building our case for us. Emily drained her whiskey and signaled for another. What do you need from me? Access to Craig's home office, files, computers, anything that shows the financial manipulation. And I need you to be ready to move fast when this goes public. When? I checked my watch. It was just past 9 p.m. Chloe's little performance should be hitting social media right about now. I may have encouraged a few people to share it. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with notifications. The video was spreading faster than I'd expected, but not for the reasons Chloe had hoped. The comments section was already filling up with questions about the affair I'd mentioned, speculation about Craig's identity, and screenshots from anonymous accounts that looked suspiciously like the evidence Emily and I had been gathering. Jesus, Emily said, reading over my shoulder. You really did this. We did this. You gave me half the ammunition. My phone rang. Nate's name flashed on the screen. My best friend since college, the only person who knew the full scope of what Emily and I had been planning. It's working, he said, without preamble. The video's at 50,000 views and climbing. Someone already identified Craig from the office building photos. His agency's Instagram is getting hammered. Any response from them yet? Craig posted a statement 20 minutes ago calling it malicious rumors and threatening legal action. But 3 of his clients have already pulled their comments of support. I looked at Emily, who was listening intently. Family first? Radio silence so far, but their PR team just went into overdrive mode. Lots of emergency meetings being scheduled. Perfect. Keep monitoring. I'll call you later. I hung up and turned back to Emily. Your husband just made his first mistake. He's trying to fight this instead of getting ahead of it. What would getting ahead of it look like? Confession, apology, immediate separation from Chloe, commitment to therapy, maybe stepping back from the agency temporarily. Classic crisis management playbook. Emily's smile was cold. But he's too arrogant for that. Exactly. He thinks he can bully his way out of this, which means he's going to keep making it worse. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the notifications pile up on my phone. The story was taking on a life of its own now, spreading through the interconnected web of social media, local gossip, and professional networks that made up our small suburban ecosystem. "I have a confession," Emily said finally. "I'm enjoying this more than I should." "Good," I replied. "You should enjoy it. They certainly enjoyed humiliating us." "Is that what this is about for you? Humiliation?" I considered the question. Was I doing this for revenge, justice, pride? Maybe all three. "Chloe wanted to make me a character in her story," I said finally. "The bumbling husband who gets pranked for content, the obstacle to her happiness with Craig, the boring guy she had to divorce to live her authentic life. And now? Now she gets to find out what happens when the character decides to write his own ending." Emily raised her glass. "To writing our own endings." "To writing our own endings," I agreed, clinking my glass against hers. Outside, the first storm of our suburban war was just beginning to break. By morning, everyone would know the story. The question was whether Craig and Chloe would still be standing when the dust settled. Somehow, I doubted it. I woke up to 847 notifications on my phone. The video had exploded overnight, jumping from thousands of views to over 2 million. But more importantly, it had mutated beyond Chloe's control. What started as her attempt at a viral divorce prank had become something else entirely. A real-time documentary of a marriage imploding. The comments section read like a Greek chorus of suburban schadenfreude. "Anyone else catch what he said about Emily's husband? Wait, is this the Craig Dunham from Family First Ads? The family values guy? I found his Instagram. This is messy. Plot twist. The husband knew all along and just destroyed them both on camera." Someone had already created a hashtag, the anniversary revenge. The internet loves a good betrayal story, especially when it involves influencers and hypocrisy. My phone rang as I was making coffee. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code, local media. "Mr. Jarvis, this is Rebecca Chen from Channel 7 News. We'd like to get your comment on the video that's been circulating." I hung up. Then I blocked the number. Then I turned off my phone entirely. The beauty of crisis management is knowing when not to manage the crisis. Sometimes the best strategy is to let your enemies destroy themselves while you stay completely silent. I was halfway through my first cup of coffee when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see Chloe standing on our front porch, still wearing yesterday's white dress, but looking significantly less camera-ready. Her makeup was smeared, her hair disheveled, and she was clutching her phone like a lifeline. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Ethan, we need to talk." Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying or screaming, maybe both. "I think we said everything that needed saying last night, on camera, for the world to see." "This is insane!" She gestured wildly at her phone. "Do you know what's happening? People are calling my office, my parents, my friends. Someone found Craig's home address and posted it online. Sounds like the internet is doing what the internet does. You have to help me fix this." I almost laughed. Almost. "Help you fix what exactly? The affair? The prank? The fact that you tried to humiliate me for social media clout? It wasn't supposed to." She stopped herself, realizing that anything she said next would only make things worse. "Wasn't supposed to what? Go viral? Backfire? Destroy your reputation?" I leaned against the doorframe, completely relaxed. "What exactly was it supposed to do, Chloe?" She couldn't answer because we both knew the truth. It was supposed to make me look weak and her look powerful. The long-suffering wife finally standing up to her boring husband, with her friends there to witness and record her moment of liberation. "I need you to post something," she said finally. "Tell people it was just a misunderstanding, that you were wrong about Craig." "But I wasn't wrong about Craig." Her face crumpled. "Please, his agency is falling apart. 3 major clients canceled their contracts this morning. Family First is threatening to sue for breach of moral standards. And? And what? She snapped, some of her old fire returning. And I could lose my job. The partners are having an emergency meeting about my conduct unbecoming. This is ruining my life. Your choices are ruining your life, I corrected. I'm just making sure everyone knows what those choices were. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. There's a difference, though I understand why you might not recognize it. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to process this version of me. The Ethan who didn't bend, who didn't accommodate, who didn't smooth over her mistakes and make everything comfortable again. I'll fight you on everything, she said finally. The house, the accounts, custody. With what money? I interrupted. Your legal fees are about to get very expensive, and Craig's not exactly in a position to help anymore. Her face went pale. What do you mean? I mean, I've been busy. Did you really think I spent 3 weeks just collecting photos? The truth was, I'd been methodical. Bank statements, credit card records, email accounts, everything I needed to document not just the affair, but the financial planning that had gone along with it. Chloe had been sloppy, using our shared computer for her correspondence with Craig, backing everything up to our joint cloud account. You can't use any of that in court, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. It's private communication, between you and someone else's husband, discussing how to hide assets from his wife. I'm pretty sure a judge would find it relevant. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emily. Craig's at my house. He's lost it completely. Can you come over? I looked back at Chloe, who was still standing on my doorstep like a door-to-door salesperson whose pitch had gone horribly wrong. I have to go, I said, stepping past her toward my car. Where? To see Emily. I think her husband wants to have a conversation. The drive to Emily's house took 15 minutes, but I could see Craig's black BMW in the driveway from 2 blocks away. He was pacing on the front lawn, phone pressed to his ear, gesturing wildly. Even from a distance, he looked like a man whose carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time. Emily met me at the front door. He's been here for an hour, she said quietly, screaming about lawsuits and conspiracies and how we've destroyed his life. What's his strategy? Denial, mostly. He's telling everyone who'll listen that the affair never happened, that you and I are bitter spouses making things up. That's not going to work. I know that. You know that. He doesn't seem to know that. Craig spotted me as I walked up the driveway. He ended his phone call and stalked over, his face red with anger and desperation. You son of a bitch, he snarled. Do you have any idea what you've done? I've told the truth. Novel concept, I know. The truth? He laughed bitterly. You've destroyed 2 innocent people based on paranoid fantasies. Innocent? Emily stepped up beside me. Craig, I found the hotel receipts. I saw the text messages. I know about the shell companies you set up to hide money from me. That's not... He stopped, realizing he was about to admit to something. Not what? I prompted. Not illegal? Not grounds for divorce? Not exactly the family values your clients are paying you to represent? Craig's jaw worked silently. He was a man accustomed to being in control, to managing narratives and crafting images. The idea that his story could spin away from him was clearly terrifying. I'll sue you both, he said finally. Defamation, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. With what money? Emily interrupted. Family First just canceled their contract. That's 60% of your revenue gone. His face went even redder. How do you... Because I still have access to the business accounts, remember? The ones you forgot to change because you were too busy planning your new life with Chloe. I watched Craig process this information, saw the moment he realized just how thoroughly he'd been outmaneuvered. His wife had access to his financial records. His affair partner's husband worked in crisis management and knew exactly how to weaponize a scandal, and the evidence of his betrayal was now public knowledge, spreading across the internet faster than he could possibly contain it. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice had lost its conviction. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You just haven't figured that out yet." He stood there for another moment, looking back and forth between Emily and me like he was waiting for one of us to break, to admit this was all an elaborate bluff. We didn't. Finally, he turned and walked back to his car, shoulders slumped in defeat. As he drove away, I could see him on his phone again, probably calling lawyers or PR firms or anyone else who might help him salvage something from the wreckage. "Think he'll keep fighting?" Emily asked. "For a while, but his heart's not in it anymore. He knows he's lost." My phone buzzed with another notification. The video was approaching 3 million views now, and the story had been picked up by entertainment blogs and local news stations. Craig and Chloe's affair had become a cautionary tale about social media hubris and the dangers of trying to manipulate the internet for personal gain. "What happens now?" Emily asked. "Now we wait, and we document everything, every threat, every attempt at manipulation, every lie they tell, trying to save themselves." "And then?" I smiled, feeling something cold and satisfied settle in my chest. "Then we show them what happens when you try to make other people the villains in your story." The war was far from over, but the first battle was ours, and judging by the continued explosion of notifications on my phone, the internet was very much on our side. The Millfield Country Club's annual charity gala was exactly the kind of event where reputations were made and destroyed. 200 of the area's most influential residents, all dressed in their finest clothes, gathered to see and be seen while writing tax-deductible checks to feel better about their privilege. It was also exactly the kind of event that Craig and Chloe couldn't afford to skip, no matter how much they might want to hide. I arrived alone, having politely declined to bring a date despite several well-meaning offers from friends. This wasn't about moving on or finding someone new. This was about finishing what Chloe had started 3 days ago in our living room. The ballroom was decorated in the usual elegant neutrals, cream and gold, crystal chandeliers, enough flowers to stock a funeral home. I recognized most of the faces: lawyers, doctors, business owners, the kind of people who made up the backbone of suburban social hierarchies. I also recognized the subtle shift in conversation when I walked in. Not quite silence, but a noticeable drop in volume as people processed my presence. The video had made me a local celebrity of sorts, the wronged husband who'd turned the tables on his cheating wife with surgical precision. "Ethan!" Rhonda Walsh, the club's event coordinator, appeared at my elbow with a champagne flute and a hungry smile. "I wasn't sure you'd make it tonight." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, accepting the drink. "It's for a good cause." Of course. She leaned in conspiratorially. "I have to say, everyone's been talking about that video. Just terrible what happened to you." "What happened to me?" Her smile faltered slightly. "Well, the divorce announcement, and finding out about the situation." "Oh, that. Actually, I'd say things worked out pretty well for me." Before Rhonda could respond, a ripple of attention moved through the crowd near the entrance. Craig had arrived, and he hadn't come alone. Chloe was on his arm, both of them dressed like they were attending a state dinner rather than a suburban charity event. It was a bold move. I had to give them that. Instead of hiding or staying away, they decided to face the gossip head-on. Show a united front, weather the storm, wait for the next scandal to push theirs out of the news cycle. Unfortunately for them, I wasn't planning to let that happen. "Excuse me, Rhonda," I said, handing her my champagne. "I should go say hello." I made my way through the crowd slowly, stopping to chat with acquaintances, accepting condolences and support with gracious smiles. By the time I reached Craig and Chloe, I'd collected an audience of at least 30 people, all pretending to have their own conversations while straining to hear what would happen next. "Craig, Chloe," I called out warmly, as if greeting old friends. "So glad you could make it." They turned in unison, and I saw Craig's jaw tighten while Chloe's smile became brittle around the edges. Up close, the strain was more obvious. Craig's tan looked artificial under the ballroom lighting, and Chloe had applied her makeup with the heavy hand of someone trying to cover exhaustion. "Ethan," Craig said carefully, "I wasn't sure you'd be here." "Where else would I be? It's the social event of the season." I gestured around the ballroom. Besides, I wouldn't want to miss seeing how everyone's handling the recent excitement. "If you mean that video," Chloe started, but I cut her off with a laugh. "Video? Oh, you mean your anniversary prank. That was brilliant, by the way. Really captured the authentic emotion of the moment." The conversations around us had stopped entirely now. This wasn't subtle anymore. It was theater, and everyone knew it. "Look, Ethan," Craig said, stepping slightly forward. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Has there? Because I'm pretty sure I understood perfectly. You've been sleeping with my wife for 3 months, helping her plan a divorce that would maximize her settlement while minimizing Emily's, and building your relationship on a foundation of lies and financial manipulation." The silence was complete now. Even the string quartet in the corner seemed to have paused between songs. Craig's face had gone from tan to red to an alarming shade of purple. "You can't prove any of that." "Actually, I can." I pulled out my phone, opening the folder I'd organized for exactly this moment. Hotel receipts, text messages, bank statements, emails discussing asset protection strategies. It's all quite well documented. "You hacked our accounts," Chloe hissed. "I used our shared cloud backup and the business files you left on our home computer. Amazing what people leave lying around when they think they're smarter than everyone else." Craig took another step forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne and see the sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "You're going to delete all of that," he said quietly. "And you're going to post a retraction, or I'm going to make your life very difficult." "Are you threatening me, Craig?" "I'm promising you." That's when Emily appeared, seemingly from nowhere, holding her own phone at recording height. "Please keep talking," she said sweetly. "I'm live streaming this to my Instagram. All 300 of my followers are very interested in what you have to say." Craig spun around, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and panic as he realized the conversation was being broadcast in real time. "Emily, what am I doing? I'm documenting my husband threatening someone at a charity gala. You know, for the divorce proceedings." "Turn that off." "No, I don't think I will." Craig reached for Emily's phone, and that's when I stepped between them. Not aggressively, just a subtle shift that put me in his path. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," I said calmly. "Get out of my way." "Craig?" My voice stayed level, but something in my tone made him pause. "You're at a charity gala, surrounded by 200 witnesses, threatening your wife and trying to grab her phone while she's recording. Do you really think that's going to help your situation?" He looked around, seeming to notice for the first time that every eye in the ballroom was on us. Phones were out now, not just Emily's. The scene was being captured from multiple angles, uploaded to multiple platforms, spreading in real time. "This is insane," he muttered. "This is consequences," I corrected. That's when Chloe made her own mistake. Maybe she was trying to defuse the situation, or maybe she was just desperate to regain control of the narrative. Either way, she stepped forward and put her hand on Craig's arm in a gesture that was unmistakably intimate. "Craig, let's just go," she said softly. The gesture lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it was enough. In that brief moment, she'd confirmed everything the gossips had been speculating about. The affair wasn't just real, it was ongoing. They weren't just business associates or friends caught up in rumors. They were a couple, standing together against their respective spouses. The crowd's energy shifted, a collective intake of breath as everyone processed what they'd just witnessed. "Well," said a voice from behind me, "that's interesting." I turned to see Margaret Whitfield, the club's president and the closest thing our suburb had to social royalty. She was in her 70s, sharp as a blade, and commanded more respect than the mayor and police chief combined. "Mrs. Whitfield," I said politely. "Ethan, I'm sorry for your troubles." She looked past me to Craig and Chloe. "Though it seems like you're handling them quite well." Craig tried to salvage something from the wreckage. "Mrs. Whitfield, I hope you won't let gossip and rumors affect—" "Young man," she interrupted, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd been managing social crises since before Craig was born. "I've been watching this unfold for 10 minutes. The only gossip here is what you and that girl have created yourselves." She turned back to me. "I believe you mentioned documentation?" I nodded, pulling up one of the clearer photos on my phone. A screenshot of a text conversation between Craig and Chloe, discussing how to minimize Emily's divorce settlement while maximizing Chloe's. Margaret examined the image, her expression growing colder with each line she read. "I see." She handed the phone back to me and looked at Craig. "I think you should leave now." "Mrs. Whitfield, if you'd just let me explain." "I think you've explained quite enough." Craig looked around the ballroom one more time, perhaps hoping to find a friendly face or someone willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. He found neither. "This isn't over," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Yes," I replied, "it is." He and Chloe left together, walking quickly through a crowd that parted like the Red Sea. The silence held until they'd cleared the ballroom, then exploded into the kind of excited chatter that would fuel gossip for months. Emily appeared at my side, still holding her phone. "That went well. Better than expected." Margaret Whitfield studied us both with calculating eyes. "You two planned this." "We planned to attend a charity gala," Emily said innocently. "What happened after that was entirely up to them." The older woman's smile was sharp as winter. "Remind me never to get on either of your bad sides." As the evening wound down and the crowd began to disperse, I found myself standing in the club's parking lot, watching the last few cars pull away. My phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. The live stream had been shared hundreds of times, and the confrontation was already being dissected across social media. Emily joined me, her own phone dark for the first time all evening. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we go home and wait for the lawyers to call." "Think they'll keep fighting?" I looked up at the clear night sky, feeling something like peace settle over me for the first time in months. They'll try, but their hearts aren't in it anymore. They know they've lost. And us? We've won. We just need to make sure we don't lose ourselves in the victory. Emily nodded, understanding exactly what I meant. Revenge was intoxicating, but it was also dangerous. The trick was knowing when to stop, when you'd gotten everything you deserved, and before you became the villain in your own story. Tonight, we'd gotten what we deserved. Everything else was just cleanup. 3 weeks after the country club confrontation, I was sitting in my home office when the email arrived. It was from Craig's lawyer, requesting a private meeting to discuss a mutually beneficial resolution to the current situation. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Emily with a single word. "Interesting." She called within minutes. "Think it's legitimate?" "Oh, it's legitimate. They're broke, desperate, and running out of options. This is them trying to negotiate a surrender." "What kind of surrender?" I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the suburban street where I'd lived for 8 years. The same street where neighbors now waved with a mixture of sympathy and admiration, where I'd become something of a local legend. The kind where they think they can manipulate us one more time. The meeting was set for the following evening at the Millfield Grand Hotel, neutral ground that suggested this was meant to be a civilized discussion between reasonable adults. Craig and Chloe would bring their lawyer, Emily and I would bring ours. What they didn't know was that we'd also be bringing insurance. Nate arrived at my house an hour before the meeting, carrying a duffel bag that looked suspiciously heavy. "Please tell me that's not what I think it is," I said. "It's exactly what you think it is." He grinned, unzipping the bag to reveal professional recording equipment. "Audio, video, the works. If they're planning something, we'll have every word documented." "That's probably illegal. Only if we're the ones doing the recording." He pulled out a small device that looked like a pen. "But if someone else happens to be live streaming the conversation to their social media followers, well, that's just modern life, isn't it?" Emily met us in the hotel lobby, looking nervous but determined. She'd dressed professionally, navy suit, minimal jewelry, the kind of outfit that said, "Serious person with serious business." "Ready?" I asked. "Ready." The conference room was on the third floor, generic corporate neutral with a long table and uncomfortable chairs. Craig and Chloe were already there with their lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Ethan, Emily." Craig stood as we entered, extending his hand like we were old friends meeting for dinner. "Thank you for coming." I ignored the hand and took a seat across from him. Emily did the same. "Let's skip the pleasantries," I said. "What do you want?" The lawyer, Jennifer Walsh, according to her business card, opened a folder and slid documents across the table. "My clients are prepared to offer a generous settlement," she said. "Full disclosure of assets, fair division of property, and a commitment to keep all personal matters private going forward." I glanced at the papers without touching them. "In exchange for?" "Your agreement to remove all social media posts related to their relationship, a public statement that the affair allegations were unfounded, and a mutual non-disclosure agreement." Emily laughed, actually laughed. "You want us to lie about what happened?" "We want to find a solution that works for everyone," Craig said. "This situation has gotten out of hand. People have been hurt, careers have been damaged." "Your careers," I interrupted. "Your reputations, your problems." "Our problems that you created." Chloe spoke for the first time, her voice sharp with frustration. "You turned a private matter into a public spectacle." "I turned your public spectacle into the truth." The lawyer held up a hand. "Let's try to keep this productive. My clients are offering significant financial incentives." "How significant?" Emily asked. Craig leaned forward eagerly. 200,000 each, cash, plus the house, the cars, everything you want from the divorces. 200,000, I repeated. "Where exactly are you getting that kind of money? Your agency collapsed, and Chloe's been suspended from her firm." The silence that followed was telling. Craig and Chloe exchanged glances, and I saw something pass between them that looked like panic. "We have resources," Craig said finally. "What kind of resources?" More silence. The lawyer was looking increasingly uncomfortable, like she was beginning to realize her clients hadn't been entirely honest with her. "Craig," Emily said softly, "where did you get $200,000? That's when Chloe made the mistake that ended everything. "It doesn't matter where we got it," she snapped. "What matters is that we're offering you a way out of this mess." "What mess?" I asked. "From where I'm sitting, things are going pretty well for us." "Really? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like two bitter people who can't accept that their marriages are over." Emily's phone was in her lap, and I could see the red recording dot that meant she was live streaming to Instagram. Not to her 300 followers anymore. The events of the past month had boosted her audience to over 10,000 people, all eager to follow the ongoing drama. "Our marriages are over," Emily said calmly. "We accepted that weeks ago. What we haven't accepted is being lied to, manipulated, and treated like obstacles to your happiness." "We never meant for it to happen this way," Craig said, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "It just evolved. We fell in love. These things happen. These things happen when people make choices," I corrected. "You chose to have an affair. You chose to plan divorces behind our backs. You chose to try to hide assets and minimize our settlements. You chose to turn my anniversary into content for social media. That was just a prank. That was cruelty disguised as entertainment. The lawyer was taking notes, probably calculating how quickly she could withdraw from representing Craig and Chloe before their case got any worse. "Look," Craig said, desperation creeping into his voice. "We can make this work for everyone. Emily, you get the house, the cars, half the business assets. Ethan, you get a clean divorce, a cash settlement, and your privacy back." "And you get what?" Emily asked. "We get to move on with our lives." "Together?" Craig and Chloe looked at each other again, and I saw the truth in their expressions. This wasn't about love or new beginnings. This was about damage control. They'd been caught, exposed, humiliated, and now they were trying to buy their way out of the consequences. "That's our business," Chloe said. "Actually," I said, pulling out my own phone, "it's everyone's business. You made it everyone's business when you decided to film our private conversation and post it online." I opened the folder I'd been building for weeks, the one that contained not just evidence of their affair, but documentation of everything that had followed: the financial manipulation, the attempts at intimidation, the lies they'd told to friends and family. "Here's what's really interesting," I continued, scrolling through bank statements. "This $200,000 you're offering, it's not your money, is it, Craig?" His face went pale. "It's Emily's money, from the joint account you emptied 3 days ago, thinking she wouldn't notice." The lawyer's pen stopped moving. Emily's live stream was capturing every word, broadcasting to thousands of viewers who were watching a real-time confession unfold. "You stole from your own wife to try to buy your way out of the consequences of cheating on her," I said, my voice calm and matter-of-fact. "That's not just adultery anymore. That's theft." Craig was shaking his head frantically. "It's not theft. It's marital property. It's theft when you take it without permission to hide it from divorce proceedings." The lawyer closed her folder and stood up. "I need to speak with my clients privately." "Actually," Emily said, still holding her phone, "I think we're done here." She ended the live stream and looked across the table at her husband and my wife, two people who'd thought they were smart enough to manipulate everyone around them, only to discover they'd been outmaneuvered at every turn. "Craig, you have 24 hours to return that money to our joint account," she said. "If it's not there by tomorrow night, I'm filing criminal charges." "Emily, please." 24 hours. We stood to leave, and I paused at the door to look back at Craig and Chloe. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by their own choices and the consequences that had followed. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "If you'd just been honest from the beginning, if you'd come to us and said you'd fallen in love and wanted divorces, we probably would have worked with you. We might have even stayed friends. Instead, you chose to lie, cheat, steal, and humiliate. You chose to make us the villains in your story, so we decided to write a better ending." I walked out of the conference room with Emily beside me, leaving Craig and Chloe to face the wreckage of their own making. In the elevator, Emily turned to me. "Think they'll keep fighting?" "No," I said. "They're done. They just don't know it yet." The elevator descended in silence for a moment. Then Emily laughed, a genuine, cathartic sound that seemed to release months of tension. "What?" I asked. "Did you see Chloe's face when I mentioned the live stream? I thought she was going to have a stroke." Emily wiped her eyes. "God, that felt good. Is that wrong? Should I feel guilty about enjoying that? After what they put us through? No. You're entitled to a little satisfaction." We reached the ground floor, and the elevator doors opened to reveal the hotel lobby. All marble floors and uncomfortable modern furniture, the kind of soulless corporate space where people made deals and broke promises. "Ben," Emily said as we walked toward the exit, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When did you know? About Craig and Chloe?" I thought back to that moment in the restaurant, The way Craig's hand had lingered on Chloe's back, the look they'd exchanged when they thought no one was watching. I suspected for a while. Little things that didn't add up. But I knew for certain the night I came home early and found them on our security camera footage, sitting in my living room drinking my whiskey, laughing about how stupid we were. Emily stopped walking. They did what? Yeah, Craig had apparently been using our house for their meetings while I was at work. He didn't know I'd upgraded the security system the month before. I held the door open for her. That's when I called you. And I thought I was the paranoid one for hiring that private investigator. Emily shook her head. How long did you watch them before you decided to act? Long enough to document everything. Long enough to realize this wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated plan to leave us with nothing while they rode off into the sunset together. I felt the old anger flicker, but it was distant now, manageable. They were going to take everything, Em. The money, the houses, the reputation. They had it all mapped out. Well, they underestimated us. Yeah, they did. We walked out into the parking lot, squinting against the afternoon sun. The real world looked different somehow, sharper, clearer, like someone had adjusted the contrast. So what now? Emily asked. We wait to see if Craig transfers the money back? He will. He doesn't have a choice. Between the criminal charges and the civil suit, his lawyer's probably already telling him to cut his losses. And Chloe? Chloe's already cut out of the joint accounts, locked out of the house, and facing a divorce settlement that's going to leave her with exactly what she brought to the marriage, which was nothing. I unlocked my car. She bet everything on Craig's money saving her. That bet just failed. Emily leaned against my car, arms crossed, looking back at the hotel. You know what's crazy? 6 months ago, I would have done anything to save my marriage. I would have gone to counseling, changed everything about myself, begged Craig to stay. She turned to me. Now, I just want him gone. I want all of this done so I can move on with my life. That's not crazy. That's growth. Is it? Or is it just giving up? There's a difference between giving up and recognizing when something's beyond saving. I opened my car door but didn't get in. Emily, they made their choices. They lied, they stole, they humiliated us in front of our friends and family. At a certain point, fighting for the marriage isn't noble. It's just refusing to accept reality. She nodded slowly. My therapist said something similar. That forgiveness doesn't mean staying in a situation that's harmful. That sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. Your therapist is smart. Yeah, well, she's been earning her fees these past few months. Emily pushed off from the car. I should go. I have a meeting with my accountant to make sure all my assets are properly protected in case Craig tries anything else. Good idea. And Emily? Yeah? Thank you for being willing to work together on this, for not letting them isolate us from each other, which is what they wanted. She smiled, a real smile this time, not the bitter approximation she'd been wearing for months. Thank you for answering when I called, for believing me when I told you what was happening, for being... She paused, searching for the word. Decent, in a situation where decency wasn't required. We betrayed spouses have to stick together. Apparently so. She started toward her own car, then stopped and turned back. Ben, you were right. About them being done. I could see it in Craig's eyes when I gave him the ultimatum. He knows he lost. Good. Let him sit with that for a while. I watched her drive away, then sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine. My phone buzzed with a text from my lawyer, Gerald. Just got off the phone with their attorney. Craig's agreed to return the funds within 24 hours. Chloe's team is pushing for a settlement conference next week. I think we've got them. I texted back. Good. Let's finish this. The drive home took me past the house Chloe and I had shared, the house she was now locked out of, the house that would be sold as part of the divorce settlement. I didn't slow down to look at it. That chapter was closed. My new apartment was small, sparsely furnished, temporary. But it was mine. No lies, no secrets, no shared space contaminated by betrayal. Just me, a rental agreement, and the freedom to rebuild on my own terms. Inside, I poured myself a drink and pulled up the live stream recording Emily had made. Watching it back, I could see the exact moment Craig and Chloe realized they'd lost. The color draining from their faces, the panic in their eyes, the desperate glances at their lawyer who had no good answers. It should have felt more satisfying. Part of me had imagined this moment for months, had fantasized about seeing them brought low, humiliated the way they'd humiliated us. But mostly, I just felt tired. Tired of the anger, tired of the games, tired of letting two selfish people occupy so much space in my head. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Ben? It's Craig. I almost hung up. Almost. But something made me listen. What do you want, Craig? I wanted you to know the money will be back in the account tomorrow morning. All of it. Plus interest. Good. Silence on the line. Then, Ben, I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean anything now, but I am. I never meant for things to go this far. You stole $140,000, Craig. You carried on an affair with my wife in my house. How much farther did you think things would go? I don't know. I wasn't thinking. Chloe, she made me feel alive again. Emily and we'd been going through the motions for so long, and then Chloe was there and she understood me in a way Emily never. Stop. My voice was sharp. I don't want to hear your justifications. I don't want to hear about how Chloe made you feel or how your marriage was already dead. You made choices, Craig. Adult choices. Now face the adult consequences. I know. You're right. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, for whatever that's worth. It's worth nothing, I said. Your apology doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't restore the trust. It's just words you're saying to make yourself feel better about being a terrible person. I hung up before he could respond. Outside my window, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Beautiful and indifferent to human drama, the way nature always was. Tomorrow, Craig would return the money. Next week, we'd have settlement conferences. In a few months, it would all be over. The divorce finalized, the assets divided, the lawyers paid. And then I could finally stop being the man whose wife cheated on him with his best friend and start being whoever I was going to be next. The elevator doors opened, and we walked out into the hotel lobby where the real world was waiting. A world where actions had consequences, where lies eventually caught up with the people who told them, and where sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys actually won. The money appeared in Emily's account the next morning, all of it, plus interest, along with a formal letter of apology from Craig's new lawyer. Apparently Jennifer Walsh had withdrawn from the case overnight. I wasn't surprised. The live stream had been viewed over 1 million times, and the story of Craig stealing from his wife to pay off his affair partner had made it to the national entertainment blogs. The narrative was too perfect, too cinematic. The cheating husband caught red-handed trying to buy his way out of consequences with his victim's own money. What surprised me was the knock on my door at 7 a.m. 3 days later. Chloe stood on my front porch, but she looked like a different person. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She wore jeans and a plain sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger somehow, but also exhausted in a way that went deeper than just lost sleep. "Can we talk?" she asked. I considered saying no. We'd said everything that needed saying, hadn't we? The lawyers were handling the divorce, the assets had been divided, and the public humiliation was complete. What more was there to discuss? But something in her expression made me step aside and let her in. She walked into our living room, my living room now, and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. The ring lights were gone, of course. The carefully curated Instagram aesthetic had been replaced by something more comfortable, more honest. "I came to apologize," she said, not sitting down. "Okay. Not for the cameras or the lawyers or any of that. Just to you. For what I did to you." I waited. "I told myself it was about being unhappy," she continued. "About growing apart, about wanting different things. I made you the problem in my head so I could justify everything else. And now? Now I realize I was just selfish. I wanted the excitement of something new without giving up the security of what I had. I wanted to be the star of my own story without caring who got hurt in the process." She sat down on the couch, in the same spot where she'd staged her prank a month ago. The symmetry was probably intentional. "Craig and I broke up," she said. "I heard. It wasn't real, you know. What we had, it was just performance. Two people pretending to be characters in some romantic drama." I sat down across from her, in the same chair where I'd delivered my own performance that night. "What do you want, Chloe? I want to know if you can ever forgive me." The question hung in the air between us. A month ago, I would have said no immediately. A month ago, I was still angry, still hurt, still focused on making her pay for what she'd done. But revenge, I'd discovered, was like a fever. Eventually it broke, and you were left feeling empty and tired and strangely hollow. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I don't think forgiveness is something you can ask for. It's something that happens or doesn't happen." She nodded like she'd expected that answer. "I'm leaving town," she said. "There's a firm in Portland that offered me a position. Fresh start, new city, all that." "Good for you." I wanted to say goodbye, and to thank you. "Thank me?" "For not destroying me completely. You could have, you know. You had enough evidence to end my career, maybe even get me disbarred. But you didn't." She was right. I'd held back, kept some of the more damaging information private. At the time, I'd told myself it was strategy. You didn't need to use all your ammunition to win a war, but maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the last remnant of the man who'd loved her once. "I'm not a monster, Chloe. I never was." "I know. I think that's what made it worse. If you'd been awful, I could have justified everything. But you were just you. Good, decent, boring you." "Boring?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "God, listen to me. Even now I can't help but be cruel." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear the sounds of suburban morning, cars starting, dogs barking, the normal rhythm of normal lives. "What about Emily?" she asked. "What about her?" "Are you two—" "We're friends. We went through something together, and that creates a bond. But we're not together, if that's what you're asking. But you could be. Maybe. Someday. When we're both ready to be something other than victims of your choices." Another silence, longer this time. "I should go," Chloe said, standing up. "Yeah." She walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. Really, truly sorry." "I know. And for what it's worth, you were never boring. You were stable and reliable and kind. I was just too stupid to appreciate what that meant." She opened the door and stepped outside, then turned back one more time. "Take care of yourself, Ethan." "You too, Chloe." I watched her walk to her car, not the BMW she'd been driving during the affair, but a modest Honda that probably represented her new financial reality. She drove away without looking back, and I realized I'd probably never see her again. The thought didn't make me as sad as I'd expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Coffee? I have news." I grabbed my keys and headed out, ready to hear whatever update she had on Craig's latest legal troubles or job search. But as I drove through the familiar streets of my suburban neighborhood, I found myself thinking about forgiveness and second chances, and the difference between justice and revenge. I'd gotten my justice. Craig and Chloe had faced consequences for their choices. Their reputations were ruined, their careers damaged, their relationship destroyed by the pressure of public scrutiny. But I'd also gotten something else, something I hadn't expected. Closure. The anger that had driven me for weeks was finally fading, replaced by something that felt almost like peace. The story was over. The cameras were off. The audience had moved on to the next scandal, the next drama, the next cautionary tale about social media and suburban secrets. And I was still standing, still whole, still capable of moving forward into whatever came next. Emily was waiting at our usual coffee shop, sitting at our usual table, with her usual order already placed for me. Some routines, I'd learned, were worth keeping. "So," she said as I sat down, "I got a job offer." "Yeah? Where?" "Seattle. Marketing firm. Good money, fresh start, all that." "You're leaving too?" "Thinking about it. There's nothing keeping me here anymore." I nodded, understanding. Sometimes the only way to truly move on was to physically move away from the place where everything had happened. "What about you?" she asked. "Any thoughts about a change of scenery?" "I like it here," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. "This is my home. I'm not going to let what happened drive me away from it." Emily smiled. "Good for you." We sat in comfortable silence, two survivors of the same shipwreck, finally ready to swim toward different shores. "Think we'll stay in touch?" she asked. "I hope so. You're one of the few people who understands what we went through. Partners in crime. Partners in justice." She laughed at that, the first genuinely happy sound I'd heard from her in months. "Justice," she repeated. "I like that better." Outside the coffee shop window, life continued its normal rhythm. People walked by with their own problems and dramas and secrets. Somewhere, other marriages were ending, other betrayals were being discovered, other people were learning the difference between the stories they told themselves and the truth they had to face. But that wasn't my story anymore. My story was simpler now. A man who'd been betrayed, who'd fought back, who'd won, and who was finally ready to write the next chapter. The cameras were off. The audience had gone home. The performance was over. And for the first time in months, that felt like exactly where I wanted to be. Emily left for Seattle 2 weeks later. I helped her pack, and we promised to stay in touch. We probably would for a while. But we both knew that our friendship had been forged in crisis, and without that crisis to bind us, we'd gradually drift apart. That was okay. Some relationships were meant to be temporary, bridges that got you from one place in your life to another. Craig left town around the same time, though I only heard about it through the suburban gossip network. His agency was officially bankrupt, and he'd taken a job with a marketing firm in Denver. Emily had gotten the house, the cars, and most of the assets in their divorce settlement. Justice, as it turned out, was expensive. I kept the house, too. Chloe had signed it over without a fight, probably because she knew she couldn't afford the mortgage payments anyway. I'd changed the locks, repainted the living room, and removed every trace of our life together. It felt like home again. 6 months after that night with the ring lights and the cameras, I was sitting in my backyard, grilling dinner for one and reading a book, when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. "Mr. Jarvis? This is David Chen from Pacific Northwest Media. We're producing a documentary about social media and relationships, and we'd love to interview you about your experience." I looked up at the clear evening sky, feeling that familiar sense of peace settle over me. "Thanks for the offer," I said, "but I'm not interested." "We could offer compensation." "I'm not interested," I repeated, and hung up. The story was over. I'd told it once, completely and truthfully, and that was enough. I didn't need to keep reliving it, analyzing it, turning it into content for other people's entertainment. I went back to my book, my dinner, my quiet evening in my own backyard. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear kids playing, dogs barking, the normal sounds of normal life. It was boring, predictable, utterly ordinary.